It's your inside pass to everything Saints football.
See you later, bye. Touchdown, Rashid Shaheed.
We'll take you to places most fans never go. To practice, to the sideline, to the locker room. Following every twist, turn, and touchdown of the Saints season.
That is going to be a touchdown. Taysom Hill. Taysom TD.
Welcome to Inside Black and Gold.
To the end zone, and that is a touchdown for Chris Olave.
Now, here are your hosts, Steve Geller and Jeff Nowak.
Oh, baby!
Hey y'all, who dat? What is up? I am Jeff Nowak. This is Inside Black and Gold, or I should say, this is a Sports Talk-fueled edition of Inside Black and Gold. I'm just going to be honest here. I had these big plans to have this episode be our off-season roadmap, all of these decisions, cap calculations, who's going to get restructured, who should be in the coaching search, all that. And then some craziness happened on New Year's Day. There was a freaking terrorist attack and everything went to shit. I'm not telling anyone what they don't already know, but obviously a rough week all around. So we decided to take the day off from recording the podcast. So, because I didn't want to throw anything at you that was half-baked and not good enough to be listened to. So we will be coming back with our next episode of the podcast on Tuesday. We'll record on Monday following the game, whatever post-game content we want to throw in there. And then we'll kind of get into a bit of that off-season program. Ideally, Thursday would be the big kind of, okay, this is everything I'm going to throw at you. I've already got a head start on, okay, how many players have to be restructured, stuff like that, getting a handle on the contract. So with all that in mind, this is going to be segments from an episode of Sports Talk hosted by Steve Geller and Mike Detiller. Going to have an interview with Aileen Hnatiuk. I think I said that correctly. She's now a reporter at WFLA in Tampa. She covers the Tampa Bay Bucs. She's going to give them some insight on what to expect in that matchup on Sunday. If you recognize that name, it's because she used to cover the Saints out of Baton Rouge. So be good for those guys to catch up. Second segment is going to be yours truly. I also went on with Steve and Mike to talk about what's been going on this week with the Saints all around the facility, all that good stuff. I can tell you it's been a pretty somber week in general. Like, everyone's being weighed down a little bit by this news, what a lot of the comments have about, a lot of the questions have been about. But, we're gonna see these guys have a game to play, so they're gonna get out there and play that game. So we'll talk about it. It'll be interesting. We'll figure out exactly what it looks like, and hopefully there's something worth watching on Sunday. One thing that I didn't talk to Mike and Steve about, but I do want to bring up right here, Saints have no Pro Bowlers. Not a one. Not a single member of this roster made the Pro Bowl. Now, that can change. There can be alternates. But for perspective, they are the only NFC team to not have a single representative on the Pro Bowl roster. If they get an alternate, we can talk about that. Last year, DeMario Davis was an alternate. We've seen it happen before, so it definitely could be the case. The biggest snub would probably be JT Gray. But if you need perspective on how telling that is, the last time the Saints did not have a Pro Bowl representative was in 2007. That was Sean Payton's second year. They went 7-9. First time since then they haven't had a Pro Bowler. So that's pretty telling of how this season has gone. But regardless, we're going to keep talking about it. So without further ado, let's throw that interview with Aileen, Mike, and Steve.
This hour breaking down Saints versus Tampa Bay, the season finale, regular season finale. The black and gold heading over to the Buccaneers, trying to stop them from winning a fifth consecutive NFC South title. To help us break down everything Buccaneers, Aileen Hnatiuk from WFLA in Tampa Bay joins us now. Aileen, how you been over there?
Oh, my goodness. It is so nice to hear from my old friends over there in New Orleans. I am doing fabulous. Thank you guys so much for having me on. How are y'all?
We're doing great. Aileen, before I get into Tampa stuff with you, it's a story that happened in the summer. And I wake up one morning and I got my oldest grandchild. She's 10 years old. And we watching the Today Show because of the Olympics. And who I see on there is you. I'm like, hey, I'm going to say, hey, Pops has done pretty well in this world. But I said, look at Aileen on the Today. So I got to tell you, first of all, proud of you that you were able to cover the Olympics and be involved with it with NBC and the Today Show. But how was that experience?
Yeah, you know what? Thank you so much for mentioning that. I really appreciate it. I mean, that was obviously, I mean, what's better than covering the Olympics, right? The highlight, one of the highlights of my career, right? If not the best. And just super, super grateful to have that opportunity and you know, represent my city and just the athletes and people and coaches and fans that I've spoke to was, I mean, how do you even put it in one word, right? So really, really grateful. And hopefully I was able to, you know, share some amazing stories and put some smiles on some people's faces, but forever blessed for that experience. But I appreciate that.
Aileen, I look at Tampa and how this has transformed for them. You know, I think back to the 2020 season, they bring in Tom Brady and they get Gronkowski and Jason Pierre-Paul and Ndamukong Suh, Antonio Brown. And they were a veteran team back then. And they didn't win the NFC South that year. The Saints did, but they won when it counted at playoff time. Ended up winning a Super Bowl, and then have reeled off 3 straight, so to speak, NFC titles in 21, 22, 23. And how this rebuild has happened with Jason Light, because he had a lot of dead cap money. And the way to beat that is you got to draft well. And how well this team has drafted the last couple of years. Aileen, that's the real story here. Now, they did hit big with Baker, but also bringing in a group of really talented young core players to the lineup is really going to propel them, I think, this year and also for future years.
I totally agree with you, and I've got to ask you if you saw my story for today at work, because that was literally what I did my package on today, was just how well they drafted this year. And not only that, but like the live production they're getting out of these guys. What, 3 of their 7 draft picks have scored at least a touchdown in the last 2 games, right? So these rookies are acting like they've been in the league for a few years now. And you talk about Jason Light. I love him because he's just so personable. Like, he's on the sidelines, he's running up and down. Sometimes I feel like I mistake him as a coach out there on the sidelines because he's just so involved and really has a relationship with these guys. And I think that's what kind of makes him special and them special over here in Tampa Bay. But you talk about Bucky Irving, my gosh. One of my favorite parts about watching him play is that the crowd has caught on to, they scream, Bucky, Bucky, Bucky. They've got like this thing going on whenever he does his thing out there. But you got Jalen McMillan too. He scored twice last week. He's absolutely crushing it. Tyke Smith, you know, he's been a big help in the DB world with Antoine Winfield Jr. Getting injured. So you just got these young guys stepping up and acting like veterans. My gosh, Graham Barton, how we can forget him, rookie center. I mean, that's not easy to do here in the NFL. So you hit the nail on the head with what these guys are doing out here currently in Tampa Bay.
I was surprised at you. Okay, when they signed Baker Mayfield, I don't think anybody could have thought he would have this much success. And this year, 42 touchdown passes, which puts him in elite category. Only 13 guys in the history of the National Football League has done that. Now, he's had a few more turnovers than he did a year ago, but he's the straw that turns the drink with this franchise. And I really believe no one could have predicted he would have turned out to be this good. You might have thought he had some success, but not at this level.
I don't know if anyone thought maybe, and he's been asked that too. He's like, hey, like, you know, did you think you were going to be here right now? But what I love about him, and I really truly believe that these are genuine answers from him, is that he doesn't care. He doesn't care about these, you know, him going 27-32 for 359 yards last week, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, whatever. He doesn't care. His passer rating of 153, I believe it was. What matters to him is the team and in winning, and he's always talking about like he wants to be a personable guy, right? Like when Brady was around, he was kind of like, okay, you know, but Baker's we describe him as, a dude's dude, a guy's guy. He's out there, maybe grabbing a beer with Mike and Chris, on an off day or something. Like, he's so personable, and like these young guys feel like they can go up to him and just, talk to him about anything. And Liam Cohen said today too, because we asked him about Baker, and we're like, hey, like, this guy's putting up crazy numbers right now. Second time this season he's been NFC Offensive Player of the Week. And Liam goes, yeah, I gave him a call because that's what we usually do, right? We're talking about the game. And I go, hey, congrats, by the way, about the NFC Offensive Player of the Week again. He goes, yeah, thanks. Let's go get a win this week. So he's just so zoned in on, a win each week. But I will tell you this, I believe that he was going to have success, and I don't know why. It just felt so right when he came here to Tampa Bay. I don't know what it was, but when he came here, I was like, something just feels like this is going to fit. And then when you throw Liam Cohen in the mix, they've got like similar personalities. And I remember asking Baker too a while ago when Liam first got here, I'm like, how do you feel like, y'all's personalities are going to go in this relationship? And he's like, we seem pretty similar, and clearly it's been working out for them.
Because of injuries, this has been sort of a weird year for Antoine Winfield Jr. And, pound for pound, he may be the best player in the National Football League, because I know one thing. When he gets on that scale, that second number is probably not a 9. It's probably more of an 8. Mm-hmm. And that little guy can play. And I know I'm getting older in this business because I scouted his dad when he came out of college. So I'm getting up there. But he is really defensively such a key for them. If they win the NFC South, get into the playoffs, and you get a home game. And so what does the injury sort of look at with Winfield? Are they expecting him back if they end up beating the Saints and getting into the playoffs?
Yeah, we're wondering the same thing. I was out there at practice today, and he went from did not participate on Wednesday to limited today. So that's, great news there, obviously, with his knee injury. But like, as you said, man, he's a quarterback back there in the DB world. So, man, it would be huge for them. And gosh, you're saying this, and what's going through my head as you're saying, I just hate this for him. I really hated that this injury happened for him, because, he had just signed his, contract at this, and, all pro, like, just all these amazing things going on for him. And then, the injury comes. So, you can kind of get a feel he's moving quietly, these last few weeks, just zoned in, honed in on getting healthy. Now, the fact that he was limited today is huge, but like you said, man, that would be massive for him to come back this week. Now, can I give you a definitive answer? Of course not, but it's pretty positive him, being making progress here, going from, not participating to limited.
Vita Vea. And you can't miss him if he was on the street, because if you're on the sidewalk with him, you're going to have to kind of maneuver around him a little bit. But he, to me, for such a big man, is such a great athlete, and his movement skills, and you watch his feet, how he can maneuver around blocks. And, if he was chasing me 20 yards, I think maybe I could give him a shot. But if he's within 10 yards of me, he's catching me. I mean, that's the way you got to look at it, because he is one of these guys that in a short area, he can make up ground quickly. But to see that mass of a man be able to be that athletic, there aren't a lot of guys like him in this league.
Yeah, listen, if the man's trying to hide, it ain't going to work, because like you said, you could spot him from, a mile away. And I love the point you make about him being so athletic for his size, right? That's truly incredible. And he's a character too. Every time we interview him, he's always, messing around with us and being funny. But, the difference maker that he is on the field, if I'm a quarterback and I see, 50 I'm not feeling great. The man's about 345 pounds, 6'4", 6'5", and like you said, with his mobility and being able to get to the quarterback. Oh my gosh, I'm thinking, how many sacks does he have on the year right now? He's obviously a Pro Bowler, but he's really, really an important piece to the Bucs defense, without a doubt.
Aileen, for you, when you look at this Buccaneers bunch going against the Saints on Sunday, what's something that the black and gold can do to pull off this upset? What are some weaknesses maybe on that Tampa team that they'd be able to exploit?
Wow, what a great question. Oh, my goodness. Well, it depends on who you guys got playing. I'm looking at the injury report here. It depends on who you guys got under center. And obviously,
it'll be Spencer Rattler. It'll be Spencer Rattler.
Okay. Well, I'll be sure to tell Tampa that. No, I'm just messing. But yeah, no, I'm thinking, well, you guys, maybe running the ball might be good with the edge rushers that we got. But I mean, we're pretty well rounded. I say we. Bucs are pretty well rounded. You know what I mean? You pass the ball. You got our DBs back there. Now we do have Jamel Dean. He's suffering an injury right now, and he's an important piece to the defensive backfield. So you may be going in that area. But yeah, it's going to be a physical game, and even Tristan Wirfs said that today. We asked him, we're like, look, Saints they're not an easy, obviously there's no easy wins in the NFL, but when you go up against the New Orleans Saints, especially their defense, what kind of challenges do they bring? And he's like, listen, every time we play them, regardless of who's on the field, it's a physical game. I'm going to be sore after this game, without a doubt. I always am. It's just different when these two teams go up against each other.
Aileen, definitely appreciate the time, and we miss you here in New Orleans, and glad Tampa's treating you all right.
Look, hey, before we go, I'll tell you right now, my heart and everybody's hearts here in Tampa Bay are with you guys and what's happened recently over there, and just, prayers for y'all. Stay safe, and miss you guys lots. Hope to see y'all on Sunday.
Thank you, Aileen. Miss you too, gal.
This is Inside Black and Gold. I'm Jeff Nowak, but this is a Sports Talk edition. Steve Geller, Mike Detiller. You heard from Aileen Hnatiuk, who is now covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, get an idea of what they're dealing with. Thanks again to Aileen for coming on. Now we're going to throw to me. It's kind of a weird transition, but I went on WWL with Mike Detiller, Steve Geller. We broke down a lot around the Saints, some conversation about this weekend, conversation about the offseason, all that good stuff. Here you go.
Now, with our own Saints sideline reporter, Jeff Nowak. Jeff, how was your New Year's, and how you doing, man?
I'm hanging in there. It's been a rough week, obviously, as you guys know. But yeah, I'm glad the Sugar Bowl has come and gone. Hopefully, everyone can get home safely, and we can kind of move on with the week. But yeah, it's kind of weird to kind of make this transition out of all the craziness that's been going on into it's just a football game on Sunday. But that's what we're trying to do. That's what the Saints are trying to do, and we'll see how that goes.
And, Jeff, it's so funny when you season in, and what you talk about is absolutely correct with, just a heinous situation that happened here. And so many people, innocent people lose their lives. But it comes to an end so quickly in the NFL. Man, we wait so long for the NFL season to start. And when it ends and you don't get into the playoffs, man, it's a real long wait before you see, your team hit NFL games again. How definitive and how it's over. Basically, it's done with in the National Football League, and that's what you have here with the Saints.
Yeah, and the frustrating thing for this season in particular is, we haven't dealt with this a lot over the last, 15 years or so, is this game doesn't, all games matter, whatever you want to say. The game statistically does not matter in the playoff hunt. And we've been here for 3 weeks. This is 3 consecutive weeks that the Saints have been eliminated, and you got to go play a football game. And I think it really tests your professionalism. I think that's what we learn about in these scenarios with football teams is is who needs that motivation of the playoffs and everything to go be your best version of yourself as a football player, and who is actually a professional who can go out there and say, it doesn't matter if there's no playoffs, the process is the process. And that's what, I think the Saints are going to benefit from having some veterans in that room who understand that. Some of these younger teams that get in this scenario, it goes poorly for them. And I think that's a big part of the reason. It's, the wheels kind of come off the track. I think the Saints are going to go out there and give it their best shot. Will they be able to compete with the Bucs on the field from a talent perspective? I don't know. But, yeah, it is frustrating because, like you said, it's such a big deal, football in this city. And, last year it at least came down to the wire, right? We went into that Week 18 game against the Falcons kind of being like, all right, let's see what happens. You got a chance. That was the case 2 years before that, same situation in Atlanta. Didn't make it again. So it's tough because so much goes into this season from the players, from the entire organization, from our coverage, everything. And then it's just all of a sudden the finality of it done. But that's the business, right?
The other thing, too, is I've had some friends tell me, just was an uneventful season, to be honest, in a lot of ways, other than how it started and then the injuries took hold and the losing took hold. I said, well, it won't be that way in the offseason. I think the offseason may be much more eventful of things happening, decisions made, new head coach, new coaching staff. You got a situation where not a lot, but some of the guys that have been stalwarts here for a long time, they may be wearing that black and gold for the last time Sunday.
Yeah, that's true. That's true for players. That's true for coaches, too, probably. I mean, if you move on from a Darren Rizzi and you go with somebody else as head coach, does he stick around? He's been here for 6 years. That's a pretty long tenure in the NFL when you consider, that's 2 coaching tenures that he stuck through. But, yeah, I mean, I think, in the past it's kind of been like, okay, who are you adding to this group, this kind of large core that you feel like is the situation? And in this offseason, it's going to be the opposite. It's going to be who are you keeping in this group with the rest of it being kind of rebuilt around that. The guy I'm kind of fascinated to see how it goes with is Clint Kubiak. Is a new coach coming in going to want to stick with him in that system? I'm sure this team, this franchise, will probably want to run that back because they brought him in for a reason. 1 year with an offense is tough to say, okay, we got what we could out of it. And you saw some flashes of a really elite offense when this team was healthy. But no, I agree with you. I mean, it's going to be a busy offseason, and it's going to start quickly because you're going to, this game's going to happen on Sunday. You're going to start this evaluation process internally. You're going to have all these exit interviews. You're going to do the evaluations of your staff, of your players, and then you're immediately going to turn to a head coaching search. And, the draft gets up on you quick, and you got to have these things in place while you're scouting, or at least you want to for the majority of it. The Senior Bowl is only a few weeks away, right? So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how quickly the Saints get into that process. They've traditionally been one of the slower moving organizations in terms of, and I don't say that as a negative, I say that in terms of they're very calculated. They make sure they go through the entire process. I know that's going to rub some fans the wrong way who kind of just want it to get done. There's always this idea that, they're going to be, late to the table and someone's going to get scooped up. I don't really think they're worried about that. They want to be right more than they want to be first. But no, there's not going to be a lot of downtime this offseason. I can guarantee you that.
Jeff, give me a guy or maybe 2 guys that has surprised you this year. I'll tell you one from a year ago, and that's Foster Moreau. I look at Foster last year, and I understand the health issue. And a lot of people didn't take that into consideration, what he had to overcome to even play last year. But his play this year is so much better than what we saw a year ago. But is there somebody, if it can be whatever, offense, defense, special teams, that you were really surprised at this year?
Well, you took my top answer, so I do have to give you grief for that. But, Foster's definitely a guy that I think, when you look at it in terms of expectations versus reality, I think he over-delivered. And the only question I have is, why don't you give him more opportunities in the passing game? Because it just seems like every time you give him a chance, he delivers, right? But the only question is, why isn't he getting more? It's really tough there. It's hard to point to anybody and say, like, man, these guys have been fantastic. It's been a really rough season. If I had to pick one guy, we talked to him today in the locker room. It's tough to say, the first round rookie is overperforming, but when you ask a rookie player to come into the NFL, change his position, play left tackle from week one, and really not be an issue all season long. Like, he's had some rough spots. That game against the Broncos was particularly tough for him. He admitted that today. As he looks back, that's probably the game that probably gets on him the most. But yeah, Talifuaga, I just think he's done exactly what you needed him to do, right? This team is not going to be right on offense or defense until it figures out the trenches, until it figures out how to block people up front, and it figures out how to rush the passer and stop the run consistently and the defensive side of the ball. And it's good to at least know you have one of those pieces concrete. Then you look over at Eric McCoy. He's obviously had the health issues, but you feel good there. So you at least have two kind of core pieces of that group, and you can figure out the rest around it. But he would be one for me. And then, the cop-out would probably be MVS because, his expectations going into the year, he was on a different team. You didn't have any expectations of the fact that he's basically your leading receiver right now, is definitely up there. But I'm trying to rack my brains to come up with somebody. It's funny because Rashid Shaheed, I feel like we've all kind of forgotten about him at this point in the season. But when you look at what he was able to do over his first 7 games, I think he only played 7 games, maybe 6. I think he was really kind of blossoming into the player that he could be. So, it's really tough to pull some positives out of this season when so much of it has gone poorly. But I think those guys would be my answer.
You think no matter who is in charge, coaching wise and whatever, but Chase Young, does this team make a play to try to bring him back?
I think it's going to be all about the market, right? I don't think he's done anything this year that makes you kind of your eyes pop out of your head, like, oh, you got to keep him around, whatever the price. But he's a guy that it feels like he's been in the league forever because he kind of has. The guy's only 25 years old. Like, he is still in a developing player entering his prime. So, I think if you can get him back on a team-friendly deal, I don't see why you wouldn't, right? Like, in terms of, hey, we're trying to rebuild the core of this team a little bit, I think a 25-year-old is a guy that you would be willing to, invest some money in. So I think it's really going to come down to, what the new defense wants to do, right? Like, if you're going to bring in somebody who wants to change up a ton on defense, is he going to fit that scheme? I'm just assuming that the entire defense is going to be rebuilt, because how can you not at this point? Dennis Allen is gone. I don't think that anything that we've seen since he's left has made you be like, oh, we got to keep this in place. So, I think it's going to come down to that. It's going to come down to the new head coach, new defensive coordinator, what you want to do on defense. But when you're talking about a guy with that skill set and the ability, and I think he has had a better season than the numbers might suggest. I think he's fallen off a little bit over the last few weeks, but he had a really strong stretch there for about 4 games after Rizzi took over. I wouldn't mind seeing him come back. The guy I have the biggest question about, and I asked Joe Woods about it today, I'm going to ask Rizzi about it tomorrow, is Isaiah Foskey. We're talking about a second-round pick. We've basically seen nothing from him. And it's not that you've had him on the field and he hasn't delivered. It's that you haven't put him on the field. I think going into Week 17, he had 55 offensive snaps. And that's actually fewer than he had as a rookie. And when I asked Joe Woods why that was today, he basically said, hey, we kind of have a stacked lineup here in terms of who's he playing in front of, right? No one's really gotten hurt on the defensive line at this point in the season, right? I mean, Carl Granderson, Cam Jordan, Chase Young, all these guys, Peyton Turner even, they've all played in all of these games. Peyton Turner does have an ankle injury now. Maybe he misses this game, and that's your kind of ability to get Isaiah on the field. But this is my second-round pick from last year. I am not just going to say, yeah, we'll figure it out. I need to know whether that guy is a player or not. And I think that plays into, okay, how much am I willing to invest in my defensive line when I have a second-round pick that I haven't even played yet? And I don't know if he can hang at the NFL level. So, no, I'd like to see Chase come back. If it's not going to be a bidding war, in my opinion, but I do think he's played well enough that the Saints would be perfectly fine keeping him around.
Looking at today's practice report, Jeff, Derek Carr, Alvin Kamara still not practicing with their injuries. Saints still holding out hope that they could possibly suit up in the season finale?
I mean, the term that Riz has used every week for the last month has been okay, we're keeping that window open or we're keeping the door open for them to potentially play, it's really hard to see them playing. It's, they're both doing the work, they're doing the rehab. Derek's issue has been grip strength, I believe, in that left hand. They were going to simulate some form of practice this week or some form of like what it would look like in a game this week to see if he could go. We haven't heard on how that went yet. I think if it went well today, he would have probably been out there at practice. So we'll see. It could still happen tomorrow, and they do that just to get him back on the field. It's tough. It's tough because you don't want to put someone out there because they're a gamer and they want to play, and then they get hurt worse, and it's a problem. I don't think you really want to cross that bridge. The guy that I have a much bigger question about in terms of I could see him playing is Chris Olave. He's been a full participant in the last 4 or 5 practices. He looks good. He's getting back into shape. And Rizzi said he had a great day on Wednesday. It's one of those situations that, hey, is it worth putting him out there? I don't know. But if he wants to play and you feel like he is healthy enough to play, there is no reason to hold him out. I could see him going out there. And, I wouldn't want to have him run a full allotment of snaps. I'd probably trim some branches off his route tree a little bit. I don't want him catching any quick slants over the middle of the field where he's going to get lit up by a linebacker. But I do think it would be valuable for the Saints and for Chris Olave to get out there and just get that feeling of being in an NFL game back so that when you go into next season, you're not still asking that question. The guy I'd be surprised if Derek or Alvin play them.
Jeff, crazy thing, and goes to show our world sort of wheels from one end to the other. I can't tell you how many Saints fans and people who have had season tickets for a long time, the biggest black and gold supporters in the world, tell me, I hope the Saints don't win this weekend. I cannot take the Falcons being the NFC South champs. I hate to say it because they were Saints fans, but it's like, man, that's no way that I am pulling hard for the Saints to win. I'd love to see them get a W, but the W means the Falcons win the South. I'm all against it.
Right.
Yeah, I was telling Steve this. I grew up a Giants fan, and one thing I remember vividly is in 2020, the Eagles, Giants, and Washington, I think they were the football team at that point, were in this exact scenario. If the Eagles beat the Commanders in Week 18, the Giants get in. If the Eagles lose to the Commanders in Week 18, the Commanders get in. The Eagles, up until halftime, they was like, all right, we're going to win this game. Then Doug Peterson, probably in hopes of saving his job, yanks Jalen Hurts, puts in Nate Sudfeld, and it's like, he gives us the best chance to win. This is Jalen Hurts as a rookie. He's already the backup. They've already benched Carson Wentz. It was a clear tank job. Giants fans were irate, but then the Eagles were like, hey, we didn't want to ruin our draft pick. We get it. They fired Doug Peterson anyway. But I think that's the dream scenario, right? If you're a Saints fan, you want to see them go out there and play well. I want to see Spencer Rattler go out there and ball, right? And then you prove that you can win the game in the first half, and then maybe you sell a little bit in the second half just to give Falcons fans some hope, and then yank it away from them. But no, I mean, you're going to send these guys out there with the goal of winning the game. Whether they win the game or not, my whole thing is it's not going to hurt your draft pick. They can't drop any lower than 10th. So just enjoy it, right? If you go out there, and I would much rather be the spoiler than look bad, lose a game, and do whatever. If you can go into Tampa's house and embarrass them, that will feel so gratifying, even though the Falcons will get a playoff game, whatever. I'm all for that. I am for, if I can build some positivity going into the offseason in this year that was so just dreary and not fun and injury plagued and whatever, I'm going to do it. And honestly, I think this city kind of deserves a few hours on Sunday to watch an enjoyable football game. So, as much as I want to agree with you and say, like, I think it would be worse for the Saints to help the Falcons into the playoffs, I don't know. If I can close out with a win, I'm going to do it.
But they're going to have an enjoyable game Sunday to watch, I think, Minnesota-Detroit.
That's true.
Jeff, always thankful for your time, and hopefully we'll get some more info on this black and gold bunch before they head out to Tampa Bay. You have a great trip, and we'll be talking soon. Have a good one.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right, that's it. That's the episode. Thank you all for listening. I just want to say, hey, this is the end of year 3. We've made it through 3 years of this podcast. Really cool to be able to say that. We're going to continue to keep renovating this thing a little bit, try to keep it fresh, keep it interesting, try some new things. This year we tried to be a little bit more consistent with our scheduling, with our themes, stuff like that. I think it resonated. It's tough to gauge in a season like this because I know people lose interest when things are terrible all the time. So, it is what it is. I think everyone is guilty of that. Even as someone covering the team, it's tough to be super engaged when things are going badly. But we'll see. We're going to have a busy offseason like I talked about with Mike and Steve. There's not going to be a lot of downtime. It's going to be constantly coach searches. This guy signed. Are you going to extend this person, restructure, whatever? What do you do at quarterback? Do you draft a quarterback? Do you consider trading up to draft a quarterback? There's going to be so much to figure out, and we're going to be on it. So starting next week, it'll be our off-season program. Going to continue on the schedule that we've been doing here, 2 pods a week. Probably we might push the Monday one back to Tuesdays. We'll see how it goes in terms of a recording process. But as always, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks everyone who chimes in, who reaches out. Really appreciate everybody who listens. It's a lot of fun to do this, and I'm humbled that anyone listens to it at all. So with all that said, thanks everyone. Hope you have a good new year. Hope anyone in and around New Orleans is taking care of themselves. And we'll come back at you next week. Myself, Steve Geller, Who Dat, BZL. Peace.